in the context of any constitution can be defined as the very gist or essence of the constitution. Preamble, as an important part of the constitution, contains those fundamental principles, values, ideals and aspirations which not only govern the very functioning of the entire politico-administrative system, but also sets the goals, the ultimate goals and purpose to be accomplished by the government. If you want to feel any constitution, that what is the nature of a state and what is the equation of relationship between government on the one hand and society on the other. What exactly the government stands for. It means for what purpose, for what goals the government exists. The nature of state. You just go through the preamble and things become amply clear insofar as the philosophy of governance is concerned. That can always be a matter of debate and discussion, that to what extent such ideals have been brought into reality, ideals have been enforced. That can always be a matter of debate and discussion. But at the first instance, if you go through the preamble, you come to know about the goals and the purpose towards the fulfillment of which the government functions, and the ideals and aspirations, which ideals and aspirations which may have evolved over a period of time. Then futuristic vision of the founding fathers of the constitution. There are many things, as I said, the nature of state, etc. So when you go through the preamble, you come to know about all such things. So preamble, sometimes some scholars define preamble as a very poem of the constitution. In the minimum limited space, it contains the gist. It contains the philosophy of governance and those principles and values, the undercurrent of which can be seen all over the constitution. Sometimes it appears that all the provisions of the constitution or different parts of the constitution, like the one which is dealing with union executive or state executive or fundamental rights or directive principles of state policy. If you take the example of Indian constitution, it appears that different parts of the constitution, whatever be their theme or subject matter, they carry a common note of preamble. If your preamble speaks about social justice, economic justice, political justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, something like this, then you will find the various provisions of the constitution inspired by such ideals assume one other shape. So preamble in the context of any constitution holds a lot of importance. Following the independence of the country, when the constitution was framed, and then constitution, it took almost 2 years, 11 months and 17 days to complete the constitution, and finally it got enforced on 26 January 1950. In the preamble of original constitution, the word socialism and secularism was not mentioned. It means in the preamble of the original constitution, there was no mentioning of secularism and socialism. These two words were added to the preamble of the constitution in 70s through a constitutional amendment. So therefore you can say that preamble, even though it is an important part of the constitution, but it does not always affect the nature of the political administrative system. How I am going to discuss that. To begin with, even Supreme Court was not very much inclined to accept or acknowledge the preamble as an integral part of the constitution, a very important part of the constitution. In Beriburi case and others, Supreme Court did not acknowledge constitution as an integral part of the constitution. What were the grounds? grounds were like the principle ground was that the preamble, even though it contains the philosophy of governance and the vision of the founding fathers of the constitution, preamble lacks, that substantive value. Preamble is neither the source of authority for any wing of the government, nor does it confer any kind of rights or privileges on its citizens. It means when it comes to define the power, authority of the state or the rights of the people, on a more concrete and material terms, here the preamble does not hold much significance, though it may have some symbolic value. It may have some kind of philosophical value and significance, but preamble cannot be accepted as an integral part of the constitution. But later on, Supreme Court changed its stance in Kesavananda Bharati case. In Kesavananda Bharati case, Kesavananda Bharati case was very important. 13 judges bench dealt with many substantial issues. So in 1973, the judgment which was delivered by this bench, it also included a comment on preamble. Here the Supreme Court accepted that preamble is an important part of the constitution simply because it is not justiciable in court of law, or it is not the source of authority for any wing of the government. One cannot say that preamble has only symbolic value. Why? Because preamble is the source of guidance for the government. Preamble does not allow the government to make departure from moral or ethical uprightness or principles, values and ideals, because in the light of the preamble, any policy or any law or administrative action of the government can be examined to be correct or incorrect. Getting a point? And Supreme Court acknowledged that interpretation of the provisions of the Constitution or interpretation of any law becomes easier if it is done in the light of the preamble. In the light of the preamble, because preamble contains those fundamental principles and values which govern the very nature of our polity, or which sets an ideals to be followed by all the governments, whether it is central government, the state government or local government. But interesting point to be noted is this, that though the preamble is very much important as acknowledged by the Supreme Court, but the argument was like, there is a counter argument. Many scholars hold the view that preamble is not so much important as it is made out by the court. Is not so much important. And what are the main grounds of their arguments? I mean to say counter arguments. Why preamble is not so much important? So they hold the view that if you examine the legal history of Indian Constitution, because I have already discussed this point, that Indian Constitution was inspired by many developments which had taken place during the course of Indian national movement, or during the British period, you can say. So legal history of our constitution can be identified as to be located in the Regulating Act 1773. The process which began with 1773 Regulating Act, in the course of time, gradually as one by one several laws were enacted, gradually in the course of time it gave birth to Indian Constitution. So Indian Constitution, which got enforced on 26 January 1950, it was not merely based on certain principles and values discussed by, or some matters were discussed by the members of the Constituent Assembly. No, members of Constituent Assembly, they also examined and acknowledged certain irreversible developments which had taken place. It means Indian polity, which had evolved on modern European lines, has already covered a long distance. So therefore, instead of bringing the things upside down and starting afresh, founding fathers of the Constitution recognized the significance of incorporating some ideals, some principles, which had evolved during the course of Indian national movement into the Constitution. Getting a point? So Government of India Act 935, Government of India Act 1935, before the independence of the country, which provided for the establishment of the federation, federal polity in India. That Government of India 1935 is so much important that some scholars say that even 60%, in fact 60% of our constitution, insofar as structure is concerned, is inspired by Government of India Act 1935. And in Government of India Act 1935, there was no reference to any preamble, and still it was not opposed. I repeat, the constitution which got enforced on 26 January 1950 was very much inspired by Government of India Act 1935, and Government of India Act 1935 did not include any preamble. And no leader during the course of movement, no leader of India ever opposed this act on the ground that it did not contain preamble. This is the first ground why preamble is not so much important. Secondly, as I discussed, in the original Constitution of India, preamble did not include the words socialism and secularism. These two words were added to the preamble only in 70s. These two words were added only in the 70s through a constitutional amendment. Getting a point? 42nd Constitutional Amendment. But from 1950 onwards up to the 42nd Amendment, which was done in 70s, during this period, even though preamble did not include the word socialism and secularism, the secular or socialist credentials of Indian polity was never under doubt or never under any question. It means the various laws enacted by the government and the various parts of the constitution carried, the elements of socialism and secularism. So it suggests that for socialist and secular orientation of Indian polity, we were not dependent on preamble. So whether preamble includes or preamble does not include, it does not affect the nature of polity. And the next argument is that the preamble is not justiciable in court of law. It is not justiciable in court. It is very idealistic in nature. Preamble has a very strong philosophical underpinnings. So it means you cannot move Supreme Court and High Court on the ground that social justice has not been achieved or economic justice has not been. Governments are constantly making effort to accomplish such ideals, but even Supreme Court knows very well that such ideals can hardly be accomplished completely. These are not destinational value. Are getting a point? So preamble, like a directive principle of state policy, preamble is not justiciable in court of law. Clear? And then preamble is not the source of authority for any wing of the government. It is not the source of any, the right, fundamental right or something for the people of this government. You have a separate chapter, part 3, which deals with fundamental rights. But preamble, on its own, does not confer any kind of rights or privileges on the people of this country in concrete or material terms. It is because of this reason that many scholars believe that preamble is not such an important part of the Constitution. Clear? So, preamble, there are two schools of thought. A group of scholars believe that preamble appears to be very much important more because of its philosophical orientation or its idealistic orientation, but in material terms, concrete terms, it doesn't hold much significance. Clear? And on the other hand, some scholars hold the view, including Supreme Court. Supreme Court also says that no, simply because it is not justiciable in court of law, or it is not, preamble is not the source of authority for the people of it is not a source of authority for any wing of the government, its significance cannot be undermined. Getting a point? If something has visionary flair or orientation, it does not mean that it is unrealistic or it has nothing to do with the reality. No. Ideal conditions, you cannot completely accomplish an ideal condition. But if you know ideal conditions, then at least your contemporary realities can be given a proper shape and direction. आप मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम राम नहीं बन पाएंगे पूरी तरह से, लेकिन यदि मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम राम की छवि आपके दिमाग में अगर है, आप उनकी कहानियाँ आप पढ़ चुके हैं, रामायण पढ़ चुके हैं, और उनसे अगर आपको प्रेरणा मिलती है, तो कम से कम आप अपने जीवन में अगर राम नहीं बन सकते तो कम से कम कोशिश ये कर सकते हैं कि कुछ हद तक उनके जैसे बने। तो आपके व्यवहार में, आपकी सोच और आपके विचार में अगर उसका एक अंश मात्र भी अगर आ गया तो आप एक बेहतर इंसान तो जरूर बन सकते हैं। आप एक बात समझिए, इसलिए जीवन जो है ना ही पूरी तरह यथार्थ के साथ चल रहा है और न ही पूरे आदर्शवाद के साथ चल रहा है। आदर्शवाद और यथार्थवाद दोनों के बीच जीवन है। आदर्शवादी स्थिति जो है वो कोई गंतव्यात्मक मूल्य नहीं है। ठीक है कि आप वहाँ पहुँच गए, अब ये सब कुछ खत्म हो गया, आप सब कुछ अकम्प्लिश कर लिया, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। आप जब तक एक स्थान तक पहुँचते हैं तब तक आपका एक दूसरा गंतव्य नज़र आता है। मेरी बात समझे, हम अगर एक आदर्श स्थिति उत्पन्न नहीं कर सकते हैं या हम एक आदर्श नहीं बन सकते हैं तो कम से कम उनसे प्रेरणा लेकर हम अपनी स्थिति को बेहतर तो बना सकते हैं। सो देयरफॉर द सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ प्रीएम्बल कैन नॉट बी undermined merely on the ground that it is very idealistic in nature. In the course of bridging the gap between idealism and realism, we achieve what is known as good governance. There is another way to look at the things. Good governance is nothing but bridging the gap. It is all about taking appropriate actions or doing everything possible to bridge the gap between what is ideal and what is real. What is clear? Now come to the structure of preamble. Preamble, as I said, preamble can be seen as a means towards an end and can be seen as an end in itself. So preamble consists of two components. Preamble consists of two components. Ideals, on the one hand ideals, on the other hand you have aspirations. Ideals and aspirations. Ideals means sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. These are the ideals mentioned in our preamble after amendment, as I discussed earlier. So this is the complete set. So ideals, preamble consists of two components. On the one hand you have ideals, on the other hand you have aspirations. Though many people read it, at one stretch. Ideals in a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. This is not the way. You have ideals, sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and you have aspirations, justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. What is the link? Ideals. By making India, an ideal condition I'm talking about, by making India a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, we aim at achieving for its people justice, liberty, equality and fraternity. Point is clear? Ideals and aspirations. How to distinguish ideals from aspirations? Ideals are something which more or less we have achieved. There is no doubt India is a sovereign country. No doubt government of India and its policy still carries, and we cannot say it is a socialist state, but there is nothing wrong in saying that we still carry socialist sentiments and values to some extent in our policies, in our laws, in so far as it is concerned with achieving distributive justice or bridging the gap between rich and poor, etc. Point is clear? So, by making India a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, we aim at achieving justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. If you come to ideals, so India is a sovereign country and we are inspired by socialist ideals. There is no doubt about that. India is undoubtedly a secular country. Secular. So, sovereign, socialist, secular, India is a democratic country. And India is a republic. So ideals more or less we have achieved. What about aspirations? Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. Aspirations are always in the process of being achieved. Why? Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. These aspirations or these values, by their very nature, these values are very dynamic in content and orientation. I take an example of justice. Can there be a rigid definition of justice? The core content remains the same. Justice invariably includes, in any context, justice includes an element of reasonableness and fairness. But after that, reasonableness and fairness cannot be defined rigidly. Reasonableness and fairness in any context is required to be examined in the given situation. Same act of the government may be reasonable in one situation and may not be reasonable in other situation. Reasonableness and fairness constitute the core content of justice. Clear? But finally, when we think of justice, justice assumes different dimensions as you change the context. So just same is the case with liberty. Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, these are the values which keep evolving in consonance with the course of evolution of society. I give an example. Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity in 1970s or 80s, and meaning of justice, liberty, equality in 2020. Can you see the difference? Yes. You talk about justice for women in 1980s and justice for women in 2020 is not same. Either there can be addition or there can be deletion. It means as the society is evolving, whether the society is evolving in positive direction or negative direction, there can be contraction, there can be a dilution in the value system of society, or there can be enrichment in the value system of society. So society's perception and notion of justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, subject to some core component, subject to core content, it is amenable to changes taking place in the environmental conditions. That's why I said, while ideals have been achieved, as far as aspirations are concerned, we are constantly in the process of achieving the same. It means a time can never come when any government in any country can claim to have accomplished justice, liberty, equality, fraternity for its people for all time to come. No. You can say that to a great extent you have been able to accomplish justice for your people. Okay, but even before you accomplish something, something new comes into existence. So the journey can never come to an end. These are not destinational values. So preamble consists of ideals and aspirations. While ideals have been achieved more or less, aspirations, we are constantly in the process of achieving the same. What is clear? It is a kind of goalpost which shifts itself as soon as you come closer to it to register a goal. Clear? And in second point of difference, that ideals are means and aspirations are ends. By making India sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, means we aim at achieving the ends like justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. I hope the point is clear. Preamble consists of ideals on the one hand, aspirations on the other. Ideals are means, aspirations are ends. Ideals have been achieved more or less. Aspirations are constantly in the process of being achieved. Or in straight terms, we can say in straight words like you cannot accomplish justice, liberty, etc. completely for all time to come. As the society keeps evolving, needs and aspirations keep arising. You accomplish something, then society demands something else, and the process goes on and on. I hope the point is clear. This is preamble, and in totality you can say ideals, aspirations put together in one integrated. Preamble has great unificatory value. So if you bring together ideals and aspirations put together, it sets the ultimate purpose and goal of government in India. Whether it is government of India or the state governments or the local government, ultimately entire government aim at achieving justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, or you can say in consolidated expression that we aim at establishing a modern democratic welfare state based on socio-economic and political justice. So preamble sets the ultimate goal, purpose or objective to be accomplished by the government. In furtherance of these objectives, the government formulates various policies: fiscal policy, monetary policy, industrial policy, agricultural policy. Getting a point? Policies are formulated by the government. Why? To accomplish the objectives set out by preamble. Then in the light of policies of the government designs, the various plans. Within a plan, you have various programs. Within a program, you have number of projects. In this way, the process goes on and on. If all the civil servants and our political leaders at the local level, right from Sarpanch to the Prime Minister, and right from local officials in the local government, district administration, and up to the level of cabinet secretary, if every official and every elected leader accomplishes the goals and purpose for which he is discharging responsibilities, then ultimate goal and purpose is achieved. It means ultimate goal and purpose, welfare state based on socio-economic and political justice, can be accomplished only when various sub-purposes are accomplished at different levels. The Sarpanch, he accomplishes the goals at the village level. He is pursuing the case of growth and development in village very honestly, and with a sense of commitment. District collector, he is taking the district, the entire district. It's like he does not consider it like his personal fiefdom, rather he identifies it as a zone of his responsibility. So district magistrate, superintendent of police, clear? The local MLAs, then members of parliament. If each one of them, every minister in the central government, state government, if all of us start, discharging our respective responsibilities in the best possible manner, we accomplish a portion of that ultimate goal and purpose. So accomplishment of ultimate goal and purpose is nothing but the sum total of accomplishment of many sub-purposes and goals at different levels. What is clear? Preamble is at the top, and all of us seek guidance from that preamble. If you become complacent that, we have achieved this and that, just see your face in preamble, and you will find that preamble will clearly exhibit your faults, clearly exhibit your limitations, that yes, you have accomplished something, but there is a long way to go. So all of us seek guidance from preamble. Preamble never allows us to be complacent. Clear? Preamble has a great unificatory value. It has a great integrative value. What is clear? It means whether it is a central government, Modi government, or for that matter, Yogi government, or for that matter, any local government, municipal corporation or panchayat, all the governments at different levels can always see the level of their performance if they examine it in the light of the preamble. That's why I said preamble has a great unificatory or integrative value. Clear? It brings unity of direction and purpose in the functioning of the government.